Look at that. That ain't going anywhere. Morning everybody, it's another beautiful day today. Today we have a DOT inspection and I'm gonna walk you through it. Come follow me. So first things first, we have a truck and trailer DOT. I like to do one at a time, just so that my mind is clean in a sense, so it's more organized. So right now what I'm gonna do is do the trailer first. I'm gonna turn on the lights, release the brakes on the trailer. That way if there is any air leaks, I'll be able to hear it. So I just released the brake for the trailer, and right off the bat I hear an air leak from the Gladhand. It's most likely the rubber piece that's in here. I'm gonna take it off and check it out. Yeah, if you can see that, it got pinched in there and that's what's causing the air leak. So we're just gonna swap that out real quick. I need the air for the trailer, so I'm gonna do that right now. Snap on. Oh, there you go. Now let's go get another one. Nah. It's a cold one today. I'm gonna use a little bit of magic juice right here. Just gonna need to finesse it in there. See, these gloves are nice because they keep them warm, or my hands warm, but they are a pain to work with. All right, there we go. Let's test it out. Look at that. No more. It's good. Because I hear an air leak coming through the valve. There's most likely an air leak on the trailer somewhere. So I do hear an air leak, but I'm gonna check it once I get under there. So basically, the DOT sheet is all in my head. I've done so many DOTs that I have the whole thing memorized. So I kind of know what I'm looking for. And I have, a step-by-step in my head to be more effective. Basically what I'm doing is I'm walking around the whole trailer. I'm checking for the reflective tape. I'm checking at the lower frame rail right here. I'm making sure all the rivets are in place. If I see anywhere where these are bent in when they hit something, I'm gonna check the cross members. Basically I'm going around, and as I'm going around, I'm checking for the lights. I'm checking 3 things at one time, so that way I'm very efficient when I'm going around the truck. Then I work my way back. I'm looking at the upper lights. So right away you can see that there's a light missing. Not missing, looks like, yeah, it did break. So that's a DOT violation right there. He forgot to close his door. I'm gonna do that. I'm checking for the reflective tape, make sure they're there. I'm making sure on the corner of the doors, those reflective tapes are also very important. Making sure the hinges are not broken. These bump stops, I'm making sure that they protrude outside of this metal thing, making sure they protrude out. I'm looking at this crash bar, making sure there's no cracks, making sure it's welded properly, making sure the reflective tape is there. Once I'm under there, I check it from the other side. I'm looking at the license plate light. And then I will turn on the turn signals and the brake to make sure those lights are working properly. Make my way over here, also checking the lights, upper lights. We got another light out up there, and then we got another one in that corner. So we got a total of 3 lights that are not working. Looking at the tape, looking at the frame, making sure it's not cracked. Actually, I want to show you over here a good example. So this right here is what I'm looking for. This is a cracked frame rail, or whatever the proper term is. This does not pass DOT because this is structural to the trailer. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. It's a great example right there. I'm also looking at these panels, making sure there's no holes, just because some brokers will reject to load a trailer if there's holes where water can leak through, or if it's a reefer, warm air can get in. As you can see, there is a gash in there, but I don't think it's a hole that goes through. There's another broken light, but it works. It's not out. This one's barely glowing, but I'll recommend to replace that because that might go out anytime soon. So that's kind of my outside walk around. Then what I'm gonna do is get in under here, and I just move my way from here on back. I really like when the trailer and the truck are disconnected, just because I can get a really good look at the plate where the fifth wheel sits. And then when I'm doing a truck DOT, I can get a really good look around on the leaf springs and whatnot, but we'll get to that later. I'm looking at the cross members, all the frame members, rivets, bolts, making sure everything's tight under here. I'm looking at the landing gear, making sure all the bolts are there, making sure everything is tight, making sure there's no cracks, making sure there's no metal on metal rubbing, making sure the plates are there. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab a creeper. I'm gonna steal this guy's. And I'm gonna go under there and start looking at everything. Welcome to my office. Basically, I'm continuing on this side. Making sure all these walls look good, making sure there's no cracks. Again, kind of just looking for the obvious. I guess to some it might not be obvious, but so because I have these side skirts, I like to pop my head out and just look all the way down, looking at all the cross members, making sure there's no cracks. You'd be surprised how many I see. The trailer looks like it's in fairly good condition, and then you have like 3 or 4 cracked cross members, you know, because maybe they overloaded or load shift or whatever it may be. I'm gonna go under here. I'm checking this side as well, making sure this looks good. Everything looks good here. Basically, I like to lay down, and as I'm just kind of going down the row here, I'm looking at all the cross members, just so I don't have any cracks or anything. Also, another thing to note, on the DOT sheet, it does mention a fuel tank or dunnage, or in this case, let's say a spare tire carrier. We don't have a tank because it's not a reefer, nor do we have a spare tire carrier. But I would look at that, making sure there's a chain, making sure the bolts are tight. If it's a fuel tank, I'm making sure there's no leaks. I'm making sure that's also properly installed, just so we don't have any accidents on the road. All right, now we're at the back end of the trailer to where the tandems are. So this is where it gets really in depth, where I'm looking at the tandem itself, all the frame members, all the welds and everything. Starting from here, I'm checking these rails, making sure there's no cracks, making sure these pins are here. That stops the tandem from going too far. We're looking at all the welds, the bolts, the mounting points, all this stuff. And then I'm gonna look at this supply hose, making sure that they're not rubbing, making sure they're not chafed. Depending on the DOT officer that you get, even if you have like a slight chafe from like a very slight rub or whatever, I've seen it, but they put you out of service. We do a lot of calls down at Cascade Locks for a bunch of different violations. We're half an hour down the highway, down I-84, so it's very convenient for us to go down there. I've seen a lot of crazy violations and stuff, and things that seem impossible but are very possible. So taking that into consideration, you know, I've learned a lot of things. Been doing this for 5 years now, so not crazy a lot of experience, but I've seen enough things to kind of know where to look, common issues, common problems. Now, as I'm working my way back, I'm looking at these hoses, making sure they're mounted properly. I like these. They protect the hoses from rubbing. Looking at all this stuff. These are your pivot bushings. I'm also making sure that they're centered somewhat. Sometimes you can see inside of the little crack, and you can see the bushing, the rubber that's coming out. You'll get symptoms on the tire where they get uneven tire wear because the axle shifted, so the alignment's off. So I'm looking at that, making sure it's not rubbing metal on metal. These look great. I'm looking at all the welds here, making sure everything looks good. I'm looking at these hoses, making sure they're not rubbing, making sure there's no air leaks. I don't hear any air leaks. I think the air leak from previous was just the tank filling. I'm looking at the brake chambers. Oftentimes, when the brake chamber is old, inside, basically the spring will just kind of hang in there. So when you hit it, you can actually hear the spring bouncing around in there. So that's why I like to hit them. I'm also listening for air leaks. So this truck or the trailer does not have shocks. This is in the airbag shock system. I don't know how much I believe it, just because we've cut a lot of these open. We have never seen a shock absorber in these airbags, even though Hendrickson claims So I don't really know how much I trust the system. I don't like it. It creates premature tire wear, but it is what it is. I'm looking at these airbags, the pin airbags, making sure that's mounted properly. And I'm just working my way down. Also looking at all the welds, airbags. I'm also looking at the brake shoes, looking at the wheel seals, making sure everything's mounted properly. I know this is probably not the best view for you, Alex. Making sure the springs are there, making sure there's no premature drum wear. S-cams look good. The pins are here for the slack adjusters. Brake chamber looks like it's working. Checking this tank. More often than not, these tanks are loose. They're just hanging out. So I like to just push up on them to make sure the bolts are tight. I'm looking at the hoses, also moving back. Rear axle. Yeah, just basically I'm listening and looking. Everything looks good on this trailer. It might be a fairly new unit, but I don't see any issues. I'm also looking for cracks. Oh, here's a great example of a bad S-cam. So how I look at S-cams is what I can see right off the bat is the bottom brake shoe is almost touching the drum, whereas the top of the brake shoe has a big gap in between the drum and the brake shoe. And so if you pay attention to the bottom shoe, when I lift up on the top brake shoe, I can get the S-cam to move. And so if you notice the bottom brake shoe right here, it's moving up and down. That means the S-cam bushings are shot. And well, I mean, they're pretty bad. I've seen worse. This one isn't bad. This one looks good. But basically, I do recommend replacing the S-cams just because the trailer will not brake properly. I'm gonna check the rear axle. So it looks like it's just these two S-cams that look like they're worn out. These two are fine, which is interesting because usually they go out around the same time. But other than that, everything looks good. I don't see any violations under here. Also with airbags, they're similar to a tire. So they also have like wire strands that go in them like this, diagonally. So under here, it is starting to like dry rot or crack, but it's not a violation yet. Oftentimes when you spray this with water, because it's raining out, I can kind of see, but when you spray with water, it'll start leaking like air very, very slightly through these cracks, or you'll see like the strings coming apart. So that is a violation, and the airbags do need to be replaced, but these airbags look really good. So I'm also looking at the sidewall of the tires while I'm under here, looking at the inside tires. I'm also looking at the mud flaps. So this mud flap is loose and it's missing a bolt. We're gonna go ahead and tighten that for him. This one looks good. So I'm making my way back towards the crash bar. I'm looking at the last few cross members. I'm gonna look at the back side of this. Sometimes what will happen is these trailers do get in an accident and then they will replace the entire thing. And they do like a hack job and like they'll do just like spot welding or just booger welds all over, which isn't safe for anyone on the road in that case. So I am looking for that, making sure that it is properly installed, but this trailer looks good. So I did forget to mention earlier, but when I am doing the exterior inspection, I am also looking from this side of the rails and the tandem and the pins and everything else. I am looking at the tires. These tires look good. I'm also looking at the lug nuts, making sure they're all there. I'm looking at the rims, making sure they're not cracked. This one looks like a grease hub just because there's no window for the oil, so I can't see the oil level. So I'm assuming it's a grease hub. We do actually have, oh, that's just water. That's fine. I thought that was oil leaking. But yeah, if it does have like a window, I'll check the oil level, making sure the oil is good too. It's not part of the DOT, but that's just something I do. Making sure they're not flat. I'm looking at the tread depth. This one looks good. We can go over to the other side. All these lugs look good. These tires look good. These tires. This one's coming close, but it's still good. It's not a violation. Yeah, so this is a pretty good unit. Aside from the 3 lights that need to be replaced, this trailer is in really good condition. He's good to go on the road. I'm gonna fill out the paperwork and we're gonna move on to the truck. I also did notice, I forgot to mention it in the video, he's got 2 rivets here missing. It looks like they've just been like shaved clean off. That is a structural hazard, so I do recommend, I mean, this is an easy job. We'll just drill these out and install new rivets and should be good to go. So I'm gonna turn on the turn signals right now, or the hazard lights, and making sure everything's working properly. All right, so I got the hazards on. That turn signal looks good. Going to the back. These look good. That one looks good. Yeah, this is good. Before we do any of the paperwork, I do tell the customer of the violations just because I can't sign off the sticker. If they don't approve the work, I fill out the inspection paper or just the sheet. And then on the paper, obviously they see what kind of violations there are for them to fix, whether it's at our shop or a different shop. But I cannot give them the sticker. I'm gonna go ahead and let the customer know right now of the violations and see what he wants to do, and then we'll move on from there. So if you're asking me what is the dumbest thing I probably purchased, by far, this snap-on screwdriver set. Not only do I have one missing already, I just never use them. So just because I want to use it, I'm gonna use a freaking screwdriver. I do have a drill, but I want to make myself feel better about my purchases and my decision in life. So, oh, you know, see, the one I have missing is the one I need because this is too small, and I'm just gonna strip this guy. See, this is how a 5-minute job becomes an hour. I hope I don't have to cut these out. Look at that. All right, now that we got the trailer checked up, now let's move on to the truck. We got the front end jacked. We're gonna check the kingpins right now. So there is a little bit of play, but it's very, very minor, very minor. I did notice that he replaced his steer tires. I'm gonna ask him if he has any vibration or any like thunking noises or any kingpin related symptoms. It's so minor that I don't think it's an issue. So in the beninging, we are starting off in the front of the truck because I got the lights on, the hazards. So I'm checking, making sure the lights work. I'm gonna turn on the high beams as well. Checking the hazard lights. I'm also checking the clearance lights above on the side. So everything here looks good here as well. So I start off with that. Kind of the same principle on the truck or as the trailer on the truck. I'm doing like an outside, you know, walk around, everything that I look around or I can see. So like, I'll start off on this end. I'll look at the tire, the rim. I'll look at all the steering components. While I'm there, I'm also looking at the engine, seeing if there's any leaks. It's not part of the DOT, but that's just my habit. Looking at the windshield, making sure there's no cracks, nothing obscuring kind of the driver's field of view. Again, kind of your brake chambers, hoses, the entire braking system on this end, the leaf spring, the axle, the U-joints, the shocks, the steer shaft. There's kind of a lot more going on here than a trailer just because there's a lot more components going on and a lot more that goes to it. So we're on the passenger side now. Like I mentioned, he did get new steer tires, but we do look for that. I am looking at the sidewall. I'm looking at the back side. I'm looking at the rim, making sure there's no cracks. Again, looking at the studs, the lug nuts, the hubcap, making sure it's not leaking any oil. I'm looking at the brake chamber, the slack adjuster, the S-cam, the brake shoes, the drums, the kingpins, the U-joints, the leaf springs, the bushings. The bushings I check underneath. And while I'm here, I'm also looking at this part of the frame. I'm looking for any exhaust leaks. I'm looking at where the gaskets go, where the exhaust manifold is. I'm looking at the turbo, the flex pipe, it goes all the way back, the EGR, making sure there's no charring, nothing black. I'm looking at the belts as well. It's more of a courtesy thing. Everything looks good so far. Brake shoes look good. Wheel seal looks dry on this side. Pins are there. Hose is not rubbing. I don't hear any air leaks, so let's move on to the back. I am noticing a slight oil leak on the bottom. I think it's the oil pan gasket, but I will see when I get under there. You can see right off the bat, there's oil dripping on the ground. There's 3 drops. So if it's actively leaking, it is out of service. That actually is a violation. So this is the reason why we clean our floors. So if there's any oil leaks, we can see right away. So you can see the oil pan is drenched in oil. So as I'm walking this way, usually there's side skirts here. I'm checking for any loose side skirts, making sure everything's tight. In this case, we don't. We actually have easy access to the one box. So I'm looking for any def leaks. Again, any exhaust leaks, anything loose, making sure it's all tight, all the brackets, mounting brackets. I'm also looking at the fuel tank. The cap looks good. I'm looking at the tank straps, making sure that it's not metal on metal rubbing. So we do have these rubber pieces, that's good. I'm looking at the mounting points, making sure those are tight, making sure nothing is loose or wobbling. I actually have a pretty good look of underneath the cab where the cabin airbags are and the shocks, so I can kind of see that from here. Everything looks good. So going my way around, making sure this is properly mounted. All the bolts are tight. This is considered a dunnage. I'm looking at the hangers, looking at the drive bushings. So this is missing 2 mud flaps on this end. That's just something to note. I'm also looking at in between the tires, making sure the spacing is even, making sure there's nothing lodged in there. You'd be surprised. Again, looking at the lug nuts, the lugs, the studs, the rims, the tires, kind of your same deal. Looking at this hanger, everything that I can see from this end, I'm looking from the outside just because it's a lot easier for me personally. I'm looking at the saddle mounts, making sure the pins are out, making sure all the bolts are present. I have seen where bolts are completely missing off of the hanger. I've seen that before. Making sure these mud flaps are here. This another loose mud flap. Lights back here work. I'm also gonna look up here at these reflectors on the corner, upper corners, on both left and right, making sure those are present. If those are not there, that's a violation. I'm also looking at this, making sure it's tight and this tire is not going anywhere. They do make special racks to put a spare tire on the tractor itself. But in this case, he opted for this version of it, but it's okay. As long as it's nice and tight and it doesn't go anywhere, should be good. Looking at these airbags, that ain't going anywhere. As long as you say that, it ain't going anywhere. So looking from the top, I'm also looking at the cross members. Again, all the bolts, I can kind of see the carrier bearing, but I'll see that more when I get underneath. I'm looking at the U-joints, the drive shaft, all the hosing or the hoses for the brake chambers. I can see the slack adjusters from here. So like I said earlier, it's much easier when the trailer isn't here because it's easier to look from above, like especially the torque rods. This middle one looks good. Airbags, hoses again. I'm looking at the fifth wheel, making sure there's no oil leaks from the differentials. The brake shoes look good, drums look good. I'm not hearing any audible air leaks. That's a good sign. So I'm over on the driver's side now. I'm gonna look at the power supply cables, looking at the hoses again. I'm looking for any chafing, any rubbing. When it's connected to the trailer, there should not be any contact with the frame or the cabin or the catwalk, just because that can chafe the hoses. Everything looks kind of decently good here. It's not how we would do it, but I mean, it passes a DOT. We're back over on the driver's side in the front. I just want to show you guys more in detail what I'm looking for. I'm looking at this steer shaft, making sure these U-joints are not playing around. So making sure there's no play in them. So I'm looking at the drag link. I'm also looking at the tie rod. When I'm under there, I will look for play. We did have a customer come in saying that his tie rod end actually fell apart because it was so worn and there was so much play that the ball inside of the tie rod end became so loose it just fell out. Thankfully, he was in the parking lot pulling in and it didn't happen on the freeway. But because of that, we always check the tie rod ends. I'm looking for the castle nuts. I'm looking at cotter pins, making sure all the cotter pins are present. That's kind of everything as far as the steering end goes. Also looking at these pass-through seals. They look like they're leaking. It's not serious, but it is a leak. That's considered a level 2. It's not a violation, but it's still something to note. I do recommend replacing, because obviously if the motor gets overheated, this can catch on fire. I know it's extreme, but you guys would be surprised what can happen on the road. Everything here looks good. I'm not seeing any leaks. The next thing I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna go underneath the truck so I can get a better look at the brake shoes, the wheel seals, the U-joints, everything underneath the truck that I cannot see from up here, I'm gonna be able to see under there. This is a Yeti commercial. I noticed he has new tires, and I think I found out why he replaced them. His drive spring eye bushings are shot. I can see because on the bottom, the rubber is all coming out. So it's not a violation yet because it's not metal on metal, but I will let the customer know about it. I'm gonna check the drive shaft, the U-joint for any play. As I'm under here, I'm also going down the frame rail as well, each frame, making sure there's no cracks. I have yet to see a cracked frame, but I still check them. I'm also looking for any exhaust leaks under here. Now that I have a better look of the exhaust, I'm looking at the tank straps underneath, the bolts, making sure nothing is rubbing metal on metal. Basically, as soon as there's metal on metal contact, that's out of service or a violation. Looking at the air tanks look like they're mounted properly. No oil leaks on the transmission. I do see a lot of oil around the oil pan though. So now that I'm under here, I'm getting a better look. It looks like someone tried to tighten the oil pan, but they very clearly over tightened it. And I don't know if that's the root cause, but it is actively leaking. It's dripping right now as I speak. So that is a violation. This is why you stay in shape, because look at this. Whoop. Look how easy that was. Checking the brake shoes. They look like they've been replaced recently. That's good news. Overall, looks like this guy does take care of his truck, because the things that needed to be replaced are replaced. But there are certain things here and there. This truck is in good condition. He's good to go. Because his oil is leaking, I'm just gonna check his oil level and make sure it's good. It's definitely overfilled. So it looks like he is aware. And he just keeps adding oil. It's definitely over the max. I think he's like trying to play it safe. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. That about does it for the DOT. That's how we do our inspection. We're gonna let the customer know. We're gonna give him an estimate. It looks like we are gonna do the work. As soon as we do the work, we're gonna write out the paperwork, give him a pass, and then he's good to go for the next year. So, thank you guys. My camera guy is asking to ask you guys to comment below our fan base name. He thinks 80 truckers, but I guess you guys can let us know.